Welcome to Beauty of Colors podcast, Wes. It's great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so tell the listeners a little bit about you, the listeners and the viewers a little bit about you and how you, what was your start and interest in history?
Ooh. Well, so I grew up in New Jersey, heard a lot of different rumors, kind of local legends, things of interest. And, years would go by and I never really thought too much about it. And then recently I picked up, you've probably seen the one, but it's a book series called Images of America. And it specializes in collecting different photo collections, old black and white pictures from all over the country. So I grabbed a couple from my hometown and, I could actually see some of the things that happened. So, for example, there was an explosion at a military base near Rockaway, New Jersey. This is the 1920s, huge thing. And it was one of those things that you always kind of heard about. People mentioned it in passing, and I never actually looked into it. But you just start to actually look into this stuff, and I just got hooked. And this was an explosion. This was kind of a big deal. And from there, I started getting more of these books and reading more into it. There's historical societies all over. Basically every town has one, just things that were very much of interest to me. And that was pretty much how I got started with it.
So how long have you been doing this? When did you get started? Is it a couple of years now, or is it?
I started writing jalopy in 2019. That's when I got serious about it. Serious for about 3 years now, casually for probably more than a decade.
Oh, okay. So why New Jersey?
Like I said, local interest. There was, I could rattle off half a dozen different specific events that I found an interest in. And I guess the local aspect was another appealing part of it. Some of these places you can still visit today. Some of them are kind of blocked off, and I wouldn't recommend that. Some of them, unfortunately, have been torn down. But I guess I found enough of interest in my own backyard, so to speak, that I never felt the need to broaden my scope just yet, but I'm sure I'll get there at some point.
Okay, sounds great. So what is the most interesting historical site that you have visited?
Oh, I think, unfortunately, it's not there anymore, but I don't know if you're familiar with Greystone Asylum.
Yeah, I've heard of it, yeah.
It's the site that used to be Greystone Asylum is still a mental health hospital facility, but the original building was built in the late 1800s, and unfortunately it was demolished in 2015. And I did get a chance to visit it. It was one of those things where I think it became kind of an attractive nuisance, it's one of those haunted kind of places that people would tend to visit when they're not supposed to. And you can go on YouTube and there's all sorts of videos of people exploring the site. But just it had a over 100-year history, some highs, some lows. It was one of those things where it started out with a very noble mission. It was seeking to help people with serious issues, and you really had nowhere else to go. You think of the early 20th century, late 19th century. It was a very different kind of world, especially with regards to mental health, and the hospital. Not a lot of things that you would necessarily think of. So, for example, they had a carpentry shop on the premises. There was a field day where the residents would put on costumes and they do shows and stuff like that. Not the kind of image that you necessarily think of when you get the that stereotypical early 20th century asylum.
Mhm.
But yeah, like I said, that site was standing. It was a very distinctive building, like you know the type.
Mhm.
Uh, and that was standing until 2015. So I did actually get to visit that one.
Okay. Did you get to take pictures of it so you can have it as a memoir, kind of? No pictures?
Um, Unfortunately, it was mid-destruction at the time. Like they were actively demolishing it, so I didn't think to take pictures at the time. But I mean, that's one of the nice things about the internet is basically anything is still out there and still available.
Okay.
And of course, I got the book for it as well. So
Nice. Okay. So what do you write about? Do you just write about historical fiction? Is it what exactly do you write about?
uh, historical fiction.
Mhm.
Now, there's kind of a few different flavors included in that. You know, there's historical romance,
Mhm.
historical paranormal, and there's some debate among different writers as to what counts as historical fiction. You know, is revisionist or alternate history count, or so. In short, I guess I would say general historical fiction. My first book was more of a historical romance, historical drama, and then my second book was a historical heist. And what I try to do is stick to, unfortunately, you know, with any sort of fiction writing, it is by nature fictional, right? So I try to keep with the facts as much as I can and try to work within that. So, for example, my first book, Jalopy, I included that military base explosion that I mentioned before. It's called the 1926 Navy Hill explosion, and that plays a fairly pivotal event in my first book. And you know, the actual characters are, you know, to varying degrees based on not particular people per se,
Mhm.
but they share certain traits and experiences with real life people. But yeah, short answer, in general, I do historical fiction of various flavors.
Okay, sounds good. So you said you do have 2 books. Are you on your 3rd book? How many books have you written?
Uh, Two done and printed.
Mhm.
Um, Working on my third right now.
Oh, great. Okay.
I
Okay.
I kind of got into the habit, and it's just been an easy one to keep, and I'm happy to do it.
Okay. So the first book you said is Jalaplet. What's the second one? The name of the
The
second book?
first book is called Jalopy. It's about in short, it's about a girl in her car.
Mhm.
Uh, that was another thing that I came across in my reading. You know, again, you think 100 years ago,
Mhm.
cars were still kind of a novelty. They were
Mhm.
they were 20 years away from being, you know, mass produced. Before that, it was just like a luxury thing. It
Mhm.
was not something that everyone had. You know, it was right there with refrigerators. I guess that's something else that I find very appealing about. You know, you asked me before,
Mhm.
why New Jersey? Uh, why this particular time period? And I guess to me, I've found that it's a very pivotal time period in a lot of ways, and I just find that very, very fascinating. Second book is called The Safe Game. It's about a group of con artists who bite off more than they can chew, and the events that transpire as a result of that.
Mhm.
Again, it's based in New Jersey with varying degrees of. Again, I try to keep within the facts as much as I can, and you know, here and there we have to take a few creative liberties to make things fit. But in general, I like I like actual historical events, and I try to stick with them as much as possible. And failing that, I try to keep the flavor of the setting as authentic as possible.
Okay. So your next book, is it going to be in New Jersey? Is it going to be a historical fiction in New Jersey? Or are you going to go out of New Jersey?
Uh, Originally, it was supposed to stay in New Jersey, and as I started getting into it, and this is kind of the peril of the process. Found myself shifting more towards New England.
Oh, okay.
So I think I got a few more books planned, and I'm gonna try to bring it back to New Jersey in the future. But yeah, for just this one, I think we're gonna deviate from the location, but still taking place in the 1920s.
Sounds good. So where can the listeners get a copy of your book? Where is your book available?
We are currently on Amazon,
Mhm.
Kindle and print. For Kindle Unlimited users, you can read it as part of your subscription.
Mhm.
I also try to make use of my Kindle promotional days. So like 5 days every quarter, they let us list the book for free, and I usually try to take advantage of that. When I do that, I'm trying to get better about declaring that on my website. It's
Mhm.
wesverde.com. And yeah, if that seems of interest, then pick up a copy, wait for one of the free days. Hope they enjoy.
Okay. So what would your advice be for someone who's interested in historical fiction, and what would you say to that person? Would you say do the research first and then write the book, or write the book and then do the research?
Tricky question. What would they do first? I find out what's interesting to you. That would be what I first would recommend. Like I said, I have been kind of reading about these topics on and off for a decade, maybe more, and it was something that caught my interest. And eventually I started getting enough of a feel for this period of time and for these events that happened, and I started imagining a story that fit within that. So in my case, I happen to do the research first. On the other hand, if someone has a particular story that they want to tell, well, you might need to figure out where that would fit best, and what period of time you want to set it in. It's yeah, unfortunately, it's not an easy answer. You need to find out what your interest is and how you want to go about pursuing it. I tell you what I would suggest, though, is I was fortunate enough for both of my grandmothers to be around long enough for me to start understanding that there was quite a bit of history there, and a lot of experiences that you don't maybe appreciate as much when you're younger.
Mhm.
But as I got older, and grandma starts talking about you know uh, following my grandfather, who's in the Air Force, around to different bases and moving around the country. And to this day, my mother's mother still refers to the refrigerator as the ice box. Yeah, I mentioned before, back when refrigerators were kind of a novelty. Well, she still calls it the ice box. She's had a refrigerator for my entire life, but old habits and all.
Okay.
Talk to your grandma.
Okay.
See if she's got maybe a couple of old stories about.
Mhm.
And this is kind of dating myself a little bit here, but the days before computers, for instance. This may maybe, I'm not sure what your average listener's age is, but yeah, the time before the internet was a thing
Mhm.
that happened.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
sure.
So talk to your grandma. See if she's got, anyone likes to talk about themselves. If you get grandma rolling, she'll, you might have to endure, a couple episodes of The Price is Right, but I'm sure she's got something of interest that you want to hear about.
So how long would the research, well, how long did your research take you in order to write your first book? How long was that?
Oh, difficult to say. There's probably a little bit of overlap there. Um, Also, I started jotting notes down while I was also reading the history books. So I would say probably a good 6 months of reading and research before I felt I really had enough to go on. And then I picked it up every now and again for reference material, just to kind of refresh a little bit. So I'd say within 3 to 6 months, you probably, depending on how many hours you put in, you probably have enough to start on your outline.
So you're in New Jersey. If somebody or several people from New Jersey are watching this program, and they're like, okay, where do I start? What section in New Jersey do I go in order to look for that, the research? Where would that person go in New Jersey to look for whatever they're looking for, historical, if they want to write a historical novel, whatever information that they're looking for?
Libraries are always a good start.
Mhm.
Um, Depending on your town, most libraries have a section for old newspapers. Sometimes they've been digitized, sometimes it's old microfilm. Um, but if you've got a particular time period in mind, that helps. Yeah, plan to do a lot of reading. Historical societies are also a good resource. You get someone who's knowledgeable and has a good feel for your particular area and maybe even what you're looking for. And again, people like to talk about what they know, and if you get a good person at a historical society to uh, read you in, that's a great resource, and you do well to take advantage of that. As for where, the areas, Newark and the surrounding towns have a lot of history there. Newark, Patterson, Irvington. Um, those are the big spots. My focus was more in Morris County with the Navy Hill explosion and the other events. Um, yeah, that's a big question. If you is there a particular aspect of that you'd like me to focus on, or?
No, not really. It's just that if a young person is kind of looking for, if they want to do something with history and they have no idea, they're in New Jersey and they have no idea, where do I go, where do I start? Like, I have no idea if New Jersey have those places where, kids can go apart from the library. They might have it in their schools. I'm not too sure too. If they have that section in maybe a government building or something where they have those monuments, or they have those of people who have contributed to society, and they can read about, those people if they want to write something about them, stuff like that. I'm not from New Jersey. I don't know anything about New Jersey. So I was just wondering, if it's a big place, but I was wondering if you know any specific places that somebody can go and there's all that historical stuff right there, and they have it right there. They don't have to go to another place, it's just right there.
Gotcha. Um, if you don't know where else to start, your own backyard is a great place.
Mhm,
You mentioned statues and historical markers.
mhm,
That's always, if someone bothered to make a statue of it, it's probably something worth knowing about.
mhm.
And you know, you don't necessarily need to stick with what's already been printed. There's always a different aspect of a given topic to explore.
Mhm.
Um, there's and hey, if traveling is an issue, I mean, everyone's a phone call away,
Oh yeah.
or even an email. Um, you get a hold of someone at your local historical society or library, or heck, I go back to grandma. Grandma, I'm sure could point you in the right direction if there's any question about, where do I start? What's worth looking into? Grandma probably remembers that the Bambergers that was on the corner of the store next to the local malt shop that was torn down 30 years ago that you never knew about.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. So what words of encouragement would you leave with the listeners and the viewers? What encouragement would you?
Words of encouragement. You're always going to find someone who thinks what you did is great. You're always going to find people who maybe don't think it's so great. You have to focus on the first one. Take your compliments, appreciate them, and accept that it's not going to be for everyone. And most importantly, do it for you. Enjoy writing and researching for the sake of writing and researching. I'm not planning to necessarily make this a career. This isn't going to keep my lights on for me. This is something that I'm passionate about and something that I'm interested in, and it makes me happy. And I'm glad that others are interested in these things enough as well, and that it brings them some enjoyment too.
And what is your website? And do you have Instagram, Facebook, where people can contact you if they have information? And you already said where your book is available on Amazon.
My website is https wesverde.com. Yeah, no www. It's one of those odd ones, but
Okay.
you Google Wes Verde and it's one of the first hits.
Okay.
I am on Instagram. I have been trying to get better about being active there. I'll fully admit that my social media game is maybe not the strongest, but that is something I am putting some effort into. But yeah, my website and my Facebook and Instagram all have links from there.
Okay, sounds good, Wes. Well, it was great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. You take care.
You as well.